Hi, my name is Jason Bunn-Parsons, and I'm back here with my mentor again for part three of the analysis of the system. And this is part B of the Emerson series. The first part is when I was talking about the very positive experiences I've had with um, the staff that's not assigned to the autism self-contained classrooms, because I wanted to focus on the ones who are like me assigned to those particular classrooms. But I realized after we got off air that I forgot to mention a couple of very important people that I wanted to acknowledge. The first one is the first grade teacher, Miss Brown, who was I I I interacted with her the first time um, during the 21-22 school year, so the year before last, when I would be taking some of my kids out. Sometimes they need to be have a break from the classroom, just real quick. So just take them outside, let them run around the hill. And there's a few times in which Miss Brown would have her kindergarten class out there, having their recess, and she was always very warm and inviting to the student that I was with, in inviting them to participate in whatever recess activity that's she was doing. And so, I just always appreciated, just how warm and friendly she was to our students, even though her job description, didn't require her, because, she was only having to be, responsible for her kindergartners. But, she, reached out to our kids and was very, warm and inviting to them. And I really appreciate that. And then the second one is the school nurse, Nurse Wendy. She is a genius when it comes to figuring out how to provide care for children who who are were scared of what's going on, because a lot of our kids, that particularly when you try to restrain them like you need to when you're providing any kind of medical care, it really frightens them. And there's just so many things, and she's just such a master of figuring out you know how to calm most of them. That there's a few that's she can't calm, but how to calm them, so that way no restraints are necessary. And if not, then finding alternative means um figuring out how to provide care for the child, so that way their injury is taken care of. And I've just always been amazed. And I actually talked to her about whether or not she would be interested in doing a no presentation, with you, where she would explain, what she's doing, and you would be able to back up, say, yeah, well, here's the science of why that works. And so, and she was very open to do it. I haven't actually had a chance to talk to you about it, but yeah, she's actually open to doing something like that. So, anyways, so moving on to oh, and the one last thing is that after we got done with our recording yesterday, you had discussed the desire to talk about how therapists and teachers can be, I guess you would say, collaborating together, in the classroom, instead of take the therapist taking the child out of the classroom, but actually collaborating with each other. And I've heard you present on this before. You're very passionate. You really believe that this is very, very important. So I don't want to just squeeze you down to just 2 minutes, but we talked about, before we started this recording, as far as, maybe, having you to, do a recording in which teachers and therapists, and you said that you would have, I'm sorry, what's her name again? Join you in doing this as well. Um,
Stacy?
what's that?
Stacy?
Yeah, Stacy.
Speech
Yeah,
therapist?
yeah, yeah. Having Stacy, join you in discussing these, and I would just basically be the producer, handling the technical aspects of it, while the rest of you, just talk about this because you're really passionate about how beneficial, a collaboration between, um, teachers and therapists is. And with this perfectly transitions to talking about Adam Lovelady, who is this year promoted to master teacher, and he is definitely a a proponent of figuring out how to get parents, teachers, to collaborate together, and 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 so um when I first met him, I had already started my Tuesday night support group that was open to everybody, parents, professionals, autistics alike. And so he came and he joined the group a couple of times, and he got this um, ideas as far as how to implement something like this, you know, um, at Emerson. Okay, so
Mhm.
that way, um, parents and teachers, can be could be collaborating together. And oh yeah, it was initially my idea that I brought up to him, and yeah, and so basically, even though I'm yes, I was the catalyst, he was the one that needed to figure out how to create a format that he could sell to the school district, because unless they approve of it, it's not going to happen. So he basically well, actually, he had to sell it to Mr. Lodato, who's the principal, who would then have to sell it to the school district. But whatever, But bottom
Mhm.
line is, he's the architect of the Emerson model of what I'm doing on Tuesday nights, and so yesterday when I was out in front of the library, what doing the promotional, one of the parents that participate in our meeting happened to come by with her son. I obviously can't say the name of the son,
Mhm.
but I will say that it's um, you know, one that was very faithful to come, as well as the teacher of her son. And so when we're talking about, what I'm trying to accomplish, this parent, teacher, child trio, this is exactly what the point of the of the Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, Wednesday 4 p.m. meeting, whatever afternoon, evening, whatever you want to classify that as, But anyways, and so then at the ends of the year, somebody from over in that classroom, which is right next door to my classroom, commented about how much better the student was at emotional regulation. Sue, do you think that's just a strange coincidence that once, mom and teacher started, collaborating together to get a common strategy to work with the child, that all of a sudden the child starts, being able to regulate his emotions better? You think that's a coincidence?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, if everyone wants to be felt like they're understood
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledged, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, and so anyway, so yeah, so as far as when it comes to all the positives that happen to to at Emerson since I've worked there, basically there's two individuals besides me, that'd be Mr. Lodato and Mr. Lovelady, that that them embracing my ideas and figure out how to make my ideas come to pass and manifest. It really starts with those two believing in me and figuring out how to make it work. And so then moving on to to the to the other lead teachers. Sorry, I forgot. Okay, Miss um Miss okay, I'm sorry, my brain just is not functioning here. Miss Moyer. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I that their class is literally on the opposite side of the campus, and so have to forgive me if I get a little bit brain dead trying to remember, who the staff is in that room. But Miss Moyer was the first class that I was assigned to. Basically, when I started working there, they wanted me to spend at least 2 days in each of the classrooms to see which one would work with me, the that I work the best in. So Miss Moyer was the first classroom, and she was, from day one really interested in my perspectives. When I would point out these little things I would notice in some of her students, she was really receptive to listening to that. And okay, and so one of her IAs, okay, I'm sorry, I should have had this set up properly. Uh, Catherine Brown, okay, um, okay, it was particularly noteworthy because, one of the things, again, when you're talking about any kind of childcare, set aside the subject of autism, just any kind of childcare, you have one extreme, those who are iron fisted and just put the lay down the law. This is how it's going to be, in order to get those kids to comply. Then the opposite extreme, you have the doormats. Okay, and so as far as finding somebody that has the perfect balance in terms of expectations for the children, you know, um, that they're yeah, they're mostly IAs, at Emerson do, try their best, to find that right balance. But I really believe that Catherine, you know, you know, that came about as close as humanly possible to, hitting that.
No, your mic is off.
Okay, sorry about that. I inadvertently bumped my TV stand and it jostled my mic loose. Okay.
Technology is great when it works.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be the one in charge of the technology on that thing I just told you about. Yeah, great. There goes the neighborhood. Anyways, but as far as you know, having expectations for the kids, and I'll admit, at first I was like, is she being a little too strong? And I actually had to step back and look closely. It's like, shit, she's getting as close as realistic. Because yeah, the kids in her, the kids in her class, okay, they're the K through third graders that require the least amount of support. About half of them spend at least part day in gen ed, and so yeah, these are kids you should be expecting a bit more out of them than the classrooms that I was assigned to this year, where the children have, But anyway, so yeah, and so I really appreciated that, that she's about as close to hitting the bullseye as far as having the right amount of expectations for the children, as anybody else. And so I just want to, definitely acknowledge that. And so then after I got done there, I spent 3 days in Miss Kelly's class and met Miss Naomi. And when asked what is it that I like so much about Miss Naomi, it's the word dignity, and so just the dignified manner in which she interacts with her students, and that, and also she's also a very calm personality as well. But it's just the word dignity is the one that bounces into my head, when thinking about her. And so then after that, I spent a couple of days in Adam's classroom, and I'm gonna hold off on talking about his IAs, Miss Munoz and Miss Anna, because I would after my little trial period with all the classrooms, I would be put in their classroom. But so then moving on to um, what at that time was Mr. Vasquez's classroom. Yeah, he was okay and everything. He unfortunately uh, left his position a little bit early, before the end of the school year, and then Mr. Um, um, Marcos, came in, and really stepped up, because because technically, he was still just an IA at the time he took the assignment, and so he was finishing up his bachelor's degree in order that he can become a certified teacher. So he was this close to getting his training done, but he was still in the process. But he went ahead, stepped up for the position, and his first um, solo day as the lead teacher, he gets a new student. Okay, fine. A week later, he gets another new student. Oh, except we were not even told that this student was coming. Somewhere between Texas and our in our administrative office, this information got lost. And so all of a sudden, this boy shows up, in the front office, and we're like, what's his name? Who is he? And so yeah, so poor Mr. Marcos, he's running around, with Miss Kelly, trying to figure out, okay, is there any paperwork, what's going on, and just trying to figure out what he's going to be doing. And that's absolutely no way to treat somebody who's on his sixth full day as a first time lead teacher. That poor guy was not cut a single break. you know um but anyways, but yeah, he toughed it out. And then this year, when Adam was promoted to master teacher, Mr. Marcos was went over, took over Adam's classroom. But anyways, but while Mr. Vasquez was still there, during my 10-day um what wound up being 10 days, because one of the IAs took an extended vacation coming off of Thanksgiving. Okay, so I wound up being there for 10 days. And so it's so one of the IAs in particular, who started the day after I started in that classroom, her name was Miss Tina, and I forgot to mention her in the original video, even though she was the most important IA, the best IA ever. But she didn't make it to the end of the year. She couldn't afford it financially. She had bills to pay, and that's really what it boils down to. We lose awesome IAs because they can't pay their bills, and so and Miss Tina was the best IA ever at Emerson, because she had such a calm personality. She didn't just act calm, she was calm. Okay, and it just impacted all of the students in that classroom. Okay, and so then by the time Mr. Vasquez left, I went moved back over to that room in order to give some stability, have at least one teacher in that room, well, one IA in that room that was familiar with those students, in order to help Mr. Marcos out. you know you know the level of calm, the level of progress that they had made in those 2 months, where and yeah, the other IAs were fine. I'm not saying that she was the only good IA in that room, but my perspective as an autistic, just being in her presence, and just feeling the calm that just emanated from her, she was the reason for that progress. No disrespect to Mr. Vasquez or the other IAs. She was the reason they made so much progress. And when I did transfer over to Adam's room, you know I just had this feeling that I was entrusting those kids to her. Yes, the other teacher and IAs as well, but I really felt that it was in her hands I was putting my fellow autistics, and I just felt so good about that. And so, would you like to comment on that, Sue?
Oh, it makes a tremendous difference.
Yeah.
um, in terms of, I know my husband used to say I was the most unemotional person, because I was so calm about everything and I handled everything so well. He never really understood the turmoil that oftentimes goes on
Mm-hmm.
inside in terms of how intensely I can feel my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, autistics are always, I think, aware of and attempting to maintain a balance. And it's really hard when other people suddenly, unexpectedly change, or they become more loud or more emotional. It's very hard on us to maintain that balance unless we've got someone out there that can model it for us
Mm-hmm.
and keep the environment calm for us.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she did. She modeled it. And again, it wasn't an act, it was who she was,
Yeah,
and that's what made her so awesome.
yeah.
And so then moving on to Adam's class, and his in both his IAs, first Miss Munoz, she well, is a grandmother, and so she just had, even though she's not old enough to be my grandmother, nevertheless, just at times when I was really struggling with, with certain things, that grandma, that grandmotherly quality, as far as talking with me and helping me get control of my emotions at time when I was frustrated at coworkers, and so yeah, it was, she's very beneficial, as a mentor, teaching me how to be a professional, how to act like a professional, how to respond like a professional. um she was very important, in that aspect of my professional development. And then Miss Anna, um uh Miss Anna and I, would not have disagreements, over some of the kids, as far as, again, getting to, back to the question of, well, what expectations should you have. Well, as far as, Adam's class is basically the older version of Miss Mauer's class, as far as the ones with, that are fourth through eighth grade, that require less support, and a lot of them were, spending at least part of their day, in Gen Ed. And so, yes, there should definitely be more expectations, as far as, how, basically on things. And so that was, think, especially, for somebody, I was seeing their abilities, and it's like, okay, you know this guy should be taken, this guy can do more, this guy should be encouraged, just nudge him, to do a little bit more, where, and so me, from the perspective of somebody that, shared their neurology and understood these things, where it's, Miss Anna, from the perspective that she actually knew these individuals better because she had been working with them longer, so that gave her insights as well that I didn't have because I hadn't worked with them as long, and so
Mhm.
so we would, after the kids were gone, and just, rehashing, what had happened during the day, having, some respectful dialogue, pertaining to, what we think, should what we should be doing in the future with some of these kids. And so one day, we were having one of these conversations. You brought up a really good point that I hadn't thought of before, and so my brain just started processing this. Started, in order to make sense of it, and when I did, I I just stopped talking to her. and I didn't realize till later what I had done is I did something that could have come across as maybe me being offended by her, or how dare, or no, that she might have thought that I was having a negative reaction to what she was saying, which, and that was the exact opposite. Okay. And so, and because this was done in front of Miss Munoz and Adam, again, I waited till all the kids were gone, and so I told her, like, hey, I didn't stop talking to you because I was offended or anything like that. It's because you brought up a point that was so good that my brain had to process it. Okay, that's all it was. And I told her how much I respected her for how she, treats, the autistic students, the children in my community, and everything. And she got a little emotional, and she thanked me and said, that I had been doing that a lot to her, and it had been frustrating her. Like, oh, this was a chronic problem of mine that I wasn't even aware of. That she was able to bring my attention because of my own willingness for self analysis, yeah, the what's the word I'm looking for? Self assessment.
Mhm.
Okay. And then being willing to humble myself and say, hey, you know what? I acknowledge that I did something. In fact, that's how I started off the conversation, that I realized that an idiosyncrasy of mine, may have caused some problems, for her, acknowledging this, and it opened the door, for us to have this conversation, and it's, oh, so you're definitely one to respond. Yeah.
This is why communication between autistics and non-autistics is so often misunderstood,
Mm-hmm.
because you're right.
Yeah.
When we take more time to process something, and we don't tend to have the body language, expressiveness
Mm-hmm.
that other people are used to reading,
Yeah.
so they may misread our lack of facial expression as disinterest,
Yeah.
rather than being pensive as you were
Yeah.
and trying to process.
Yeah. Well, in as far as in my case, what I was doing is I was literally walking away from her in the middle of a conversation, which was probably even worse.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it. But basically, what I was doing is, okay, I need to focus. So let's go some where there's a little less stimuli. And
Hmm.
again, I was so focused um, on the need to process this information. It didn't cross my mind how she might interpret that. And then so when I talked to her about it, it's like, oh, I've been doing this a lot to her, and it was causing her a lot of frustration. And so it was good that we talked this out, because this past school year, okay, I was okay, so real quick, Miss Anna is, is a very young IA, and literally young enough to be my daughter. And so that also, I know from back when I was that age, it's kind of hard to stand up to somebody older than you.
Hmm.
Okay, and so this year, Miss Carla, okay, who was in the room I was assigned to, okay, was in the last year, of her 20 years, before retiring. And so she is one that had every right to demand the respect that she demanded from me. And so when I was starting, so what would happen? Okay, so in that room, that the highest support needs, of the entire department, and so the room is extra chaotic. And so yeah, so there's so much more for my brain to try to process, make sense, just getting my brain slowed down enough so I can process. And then Miss Carla gives me input, and I'm not responding to her input, and she's like, so you're just going to ignore me. And because Miss Ann and I had this conversation, I knew exactly what was going on. And so I explained to Miss Carla what was going on, that I'm just being bombarded, just give me a minute to process all this. And I think it took a couple of weeks for her, observing me to realize that yes, that was the case. That I just need to get some time to get my brain, under control. So, so that way I can, utilize, because yes, she had, again, been doing that for 20 years. Um, all the students that we had, she had had at least for one prior year, because yeah, this classroom was moved over from Lowell, so she had every one of these students all of last year, and so yeah, she absolutely had valid input that I absolutely needed to be taken in consideration. She just needed to give me a little time to get things slowed down so I could process it. And once she realized that was a valid explanation that I was giving her, um, she became very patient with me, yet in that area, and then in time, she would see that my brain's just churning away. She would see that in my eyes, says, "So, what's your brain working on now?" And so it's so it's it's so yeah, that first month was a little rough for the two of us. Figuring out how to to work together with each other. First 2 to 4 weeks was a bit rough, but yeah, we did work it out, and a lot of it was because of the conversation that Miss Anna and I had. When she pointed out that I had this issue that was a chronic issue that needed to be
Mhm.
explained so the people I'm working with can understand. And then so then later on when we had that had the student who was one half of the siblings I talked about that were going through something that no child should ever have to go through. Unfortunately, that was not her first time supporting such a student, and so it was very beneficial having her as somebody after the kids go home, just being able to vent my anger out, just let where I could just
Mhm.
say exactly what I think about the responsible parties and what I just want to be able to tell those responsible parties if I had if I could see them face to face, and she would just let me vent. And then when she did speak, she spoke wisely. Not that I necessarily wanted to accept her wisdom right at that time, but after we're done, and again, my brain processing, everything that happened and thinking about what she said, like, yeah, she's right. It stinks. But there comes a point in time where basically, lot, like I said, my observation that I was legally and morally required to report was the last straw,
Mhm.
and I made that observation at 9 o'clock in the morning. By 3:30, a permanent solution was in place, and that weighs heavily on me, and so and I just felt like I'm handing off these children that this child who's a member of my community to some stranger that I've never met, I probably never will meet. So I don't know if I even can trust this stranger. Oh well, the system. I don't care about this system. I
Yeah.
want to know who it is. Just like when I handed off those kids in Mr. Vasquez's class to Miss Tina. I knew who she was, and I just so trusted her. But yeah, trusting some some strangers that with the most vulnerable members of our community. Our community is amongst the most vulnerable communities, but this child was the most vulnerable of our most vulnerable, and just totally going through things no child should ever have to go through. It was very difficult on me, and the relationship that I developed with Miss Carla by that point, was such where she was really able to give me that emotional support in order to accept that I had to let this child go. It's that simple. No,
Mhm.
there are things that I do not have control over, and I had to let him go.
Yeah. And that's hard because
Mhm.
we know internally how hard it is to trust other people,
Mm-hmm.
because oftentimes, because of misunderstandings, we feel hurt and a lot of pain because we're not well understood.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand your empathy for that young child.
Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, so I think that pretty well wraps up. This particular video. We've gone a little bit long, but we definitely had a lot of good things to talk about, and so um, so then tomorrow we're going to be talking about but before I start talking about some of these systemic issues that I've seen. And again, I'm going all the way back to the first time I've ever worked professional daycare back in '91. Okay, and all these other jobs. So again, don't think it's just all bashing my current coworkers, but these systemic issues. Before I do that, I want to talk about the end result so we can understand that there's a reason why we need to question the system. Okay, it's because of the children that are coming out of the system. They're coming to our adult support groups, yours on Saturday nights, mine on Tuesday nights, or I'm sorry, Saturday afternoons, me on Tuesday nights, and based on these results, the system definitely needs to be questioned in a number of areas. And so I want to start off with that first, so that way people understand why they should be paying extra close attention when we do talk about what some of these issues are with the system. So we'll be doing that tomorrow. So is there anything you want to say in closing, Sue?
No, other than I support what you're doing. I totally agree. There is a need to change, and the only way change is going to happen is people have to understand what they currently have trouble understanding
Mm-hmm.
because they don't experience what it's like to be autistic.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way they can understand it is through us autistics being able to explain to them.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And so I will see you bright and early tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, James.